Yeah. Okay. So we are going to talk about Dewey. Yeah, Dewey was a learning science researcher. He wrote the very famous Democracy in Education. Uh, it's available online. It's like having some. It's actually having a lot of chapters, and we were made to read through the 11th and 12th chapter. And I've got to say, this particular course that I took, it's kind of nice because it answers a lot of questions which I had, like actual questions which like are relevant. It's actually solving it. I did not expect this to happen, but it did. Okay, so while I was going through a lot of, to put it frankly, trouble, um, through school, through college, at my internship, etc., etc., hardships, right? Throughout that, I was more or less trying to find a reason that how to cope with all that. Is there a way that I could not feel this oppressed while doing all of this? And there are reasons why one might feel oppressed. There's this guy called Paulo Freire, and he writes a lot about the kind of oppression that we face in education and in work. He writes about this banking model of education and how it sort of reproduces and circulates this oppressive regime where you have a dichotomy between a teacher who is like super smart, who knows everything, who is going to first teach, right? So you teach first, you are given a problem first, you are given the tools first, you're given the method first, you're given basically everything, you're spoon fed, right? And then, only then, are you told to do something with it, take actions on it. And it's not in a oh, I've taught you all this, now apply it sense. No, it's not that. It's basically like pattern matching, that you are supposed to reproduce the exact theory that he has taught you, the exact words, the exact jargon, the exact method, right? With just some slight variation to the problem. The problems aren't even that hard, frankly, to challenge any kind of thinking. And and that's what Dewey and Frere, these people are against this. What they are saying is that that's not how most of the times knowledge is created. The way knowledge is created is through inquiry. I mean, that's how any research starts. You have some sort of a big, not even a big, but a hard to solve question which you lack knowledge to solve, which isn't obvious, and that is what leads to real knowledge. According to him, thought is instrumental. So he talks a lot about this instrumentality. Um, this thing is even discussed for what is it called, constructivism. So schemes, accommodation, assimilation, all that stuff. And so the basic idea is that any information that you have, whether it's some sort of tool that you have internalized. Vygotsky, he talks about these things. So basically, like, you have things like language, things like programming languages, algebra systems, etc. So these are like tools to solve things. Even simple algorithms are tools to solve things, and by repeatedly using them, they become a part of your thinking process. Like you'll try to fit everything using these tools, like that's your go-to method to do anything. It becomes almost like an instinct, like hunger. So shit, what was I doing? Yeah. So what Dewey says is that all these things that you're going to internalize, all the other facts that you'll learn, schemes they call it in constructivism, everything that you'll acquire, basically, it will all be instrumental in solving something. And that's how genuine thought and inquiry is supposed to be. Now the problem with the education system is that that's not how things are set up. And it's not just the education system, it's present everywhere. Like, everywhere that you go, you take an online course, uh, you do an internship, it's your first day at some company working for them. What will actually happen is that they'll first overload you with all this different information about how to do things, which you'll be having no interest in learning, because none of this is actually important, right? In your eyes, none of this is important. And then eventually, when the need arises, you won't retain any of it because it wasn't important, and then you'll be failing. And then they'll tell you that you are a failure because we told you all of this, and yet you don't recollect any of it. So you can see the problem over here, that you told me all this, but why the hell should I even remember it? Like, the need, the instrumentality wasn't there. And this is the problem that I've been trying to solve for a lot of time. So the problem is, you're given a very mundane, a very boring task. And not even mundane, it's like a difficult mundane task which you do not have any incentive to do. You do not feel motivated to do that. It's not like that you're curious about that task. Nope, nothing. It's like somebody is forcing you to do something that you have no interest in. It's basically oppression, right? And most of what we do in schools is oppression. Like, let's face it. uh, what is it called? Oh yeah, discipline, right? That's the worst use of that word. I mean, you could call it obedience, and I would probably agree with you. Why call it discipline? Anyway, so you are currently under some sort of an oppressive task, right? You have to complete a task to get to the next stage. How do you do it? How do you even find the motivation to do this task? Like, this task is basically hell. Why you have no reason to go through it, right? Or do you? So what I claim is, there is some fundamental trait that all these tasks share, which you can train by doing these tasks over and over and over again, and that in a way could be your incentive. So to give a very small example, let's say you are told to write a web application. To do that, you have to, I don't know, some framework, like say Django or something. So you have to learn that framework, then you have to code a lot, and like set up variables, set up these different API endpoints, etc., etc. All very boring stuff, which no one is all that interested in. They just want the application finally. Even when the people who want you to do that, they're not interested in this thing. You yourself, you're not interested in this thing. No one is interested in this thing. But yeah, that's your job basically. What do? Like, this is a boring, unnecessary thing which, it's not intellectually stimulating, it's not relevant to you. Why do it, right? So there are multiple different philosophies on how you can handle this. The first philosophy is the most reactive and immature, but it works. Like, it works wonders, and that's what Albert Camus says. So he was the first person who I read, not read the actual thing that he wrote, but read about it. So what he says is that if you have such a task at hand, which is equivalent to rolling a hill up, why do I always do this? Rolling a rock up a hill, the way you should be doing it is be spiteful, be angry at it, right? And that's your motivation. Your whole sense of motivation is just spite. So throughout that process, you'll be extremely unpleasant to talk to. Nobody would want to talk to you, and you can see why this is a bad idea. And I was like this during my JE phase. I was like this, that a lot of my motivation stemmed from this immature spite, that I wanted to do it so that I can prove somebody wrong. Yeah, and a lot of people here who got in IITs and who got to different places, all of them were like this. This is one of the most profound sources of motivation. Like, it's to deal damage or to be defiant, that you won't break under pressure even if the whole world wants you to. So that's one way to solve this problem. And this isn't a very nice way. It has so many drawbacks, so many flaws. One, we are social animals. So everyone around you will be able to see that you're a very unpleasant person to talk to because you're angry all the time. If you're angry all the time, you lose friends. You lose friends, you are lonely. You're lonely, you created new problems for you basically. So, failed attempt. Like, if you persist like this, if your whole life is basically a series of these meaningless tasks, which for most people it is, you're going to be lonely most of the times. And that in itself will now create even more anger, and this just keeps on going until you're just a loner. And yeah, and then you're wondering, why do I exist, why live, those kind of things. So not a good idea. The other way, it's the stoic way. So stoics, well, they believe that endurance could be virtuous. So what that means is, so like they'll do these weird things like take cold showers, or like inflict discomfort, not pain, not damage, but discomfort on them, like go for running or go to the gym all the time, things like that. So this just becomes another source of discomfort. And then the stoic says that, well, since it's discomfort and I'm enduring it, I'm a virtuous person. So basically you are a quote unquote good guy. Yeah, like the obedient goody two shoes, that sort of a thing. The good student mentality, that you're doing it because it's your job. So your problem was that you're oppressed. All you've done is basically like took on a slave morality, which is what Friedrich Nietzsche he points against. He literally calls it slave morality. Is it him or is it Schopenhauer? I don't know. So somebody calls it that. So even this is a bad idea, because you're going to endure for what reason? I mean, if you're making it some sort of a, I don't know, something like a kink basically, that you're like a submissive uh, kind of a person who's like just going to take on everyone else's issues and just go through it and then be proud of how much you're enduring. It's stupid. Why endure so much if it's not going to lead to anything? Like, if you have multiple paths in front of you, take the path of the least resistance. Like, don't be stupid like that. So, and okay, that's not what actually stoics say. They also have another point, which is that you can control your actions. So in a very game theoretic manner, you can control what things you can do in the current setting based on what powers you possess, right? And you should just choose the most responsible and virtuous. But now virtuous is so vaguely defined that we basically have to look at the context. How do we define virtuous, and just act on that. So project your belief onto your set of actions and act accordingly. That's the stoic way to do it. That if you believe that being a goody two shoes is the best way, be a goody two shoes, endure the oppression, or whatever, like whatever your value system is like, just think about what are the different ways you can act, and then act accordingly, right? So you aren't in a sense oppressed because you still possess some sort of power. So you're not like powerless, but there's also not a lot of power, because power is the ability to change things, right? It's the more actions are available to you, the more powerful you are. And if you don't have a lot of actions available to you, you're practically powerless. Okay, so that's the stoic way. It's just 2 points, and the first point is what I have a grudge with. Is the first point says that endurance is somehow virtuous, being patient, in a sense being like, I don't know, mature is virtuous, which is stupid. Like, this is the worst kind of advice you could give to a person who's like actually oppressed, because then you're just promoting oppression, right? And then finally, there's Nietzsche. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but what he says is that there are two kinds of morality: the slave morality and the master morality. The slave morality is basically what the Stoics say, and master morality is that, so it he relies a lot on moral relativism. That is, that morality is defined by power. So for him, it's not endurance which is virtuous, and it's not even virtue which you're after. It's what you should be going after is power. Power is basically the way to create values, right? So the way we do things uh, in society, right, it's decided through power and not through some written rules on why these things are good things to do, right? And I shouldn't be saying more on this because this is going to get like really controversial. Like the views he has can sometimes be controversial to the people who are very um, ah, okay, like the word which I was going to say is close-minded, but I don't even know if that's the correct word for it. Who are very rigid in what they believe, like very firm. So that's the polite word. Yes, have faith in your own beliefs, that sort of thing. So yeah, so for the firm believer, this is basically going to be nonsense, and they won't like it at all. But what first Schopenhauer, who was like a complete, like straight up everything's bad, kill yourself, that sort of a person. Yeah, I mean, he was basically saying that there is no morality and stuff like that. But okay, tone it down a little. Let's go to Nietzsche. What he's saying is that power is virtuous, and it's not just like using power for the sake of enjoyment, but rather using power for doing things, right? Not, I'm not saying necessarily doing things so that they're like socially good, or doing responsible, mature things. That's what Stoics say. Just doing things, just just enacting your will onto the world. That's what he's after. He's saying that that is the only virtuous thing. So he has this like multiple stages of a person. So I don't know, I think he calls it a metamorphosis. So what he's saying is, first you're a free spirit who has no values at all. It's like a child. Okay, a child is like actually the final stage, but the only way to really describe is basically a child. Yeah. Then you are faced with oppression, and then you have to carry burdens, right? And then what happens is you become a stoic. And I'm saying stoic, but what he uses is camel. So just like a camel carries a lot of burdens, he's saying that you are going to carry a lot of burdens, and then be proud of your strength. So that's basically the stoic way. Okay, so that's where most people are stuck, level 1. Then he says that there comes a next stage where you become a lion, where you're not just enduring stuff that people are posing on you, that, oh, do this, do that, this is good, this is bad, and all that. You're actually starting to question, why is this good, why is it bad, and all that. So now you're also capable of rejecting stuff. And then finally there's the last stage called a child, where you're not just rejecting, but you're also actually creating values. So you decide that since now you've rejected everything, that this isn't good, what you're saying is rubbish. Obviously the next thing will be, what is good then? So the child, he can create values for his own and believe in it. Like, he'll be able to create mottos and stick to that motto for his whole life, that sort of thing. A child is somebody who can hypothesize that what a good structure for things should be, who is not just brave as the lion to reject structures that are imposed by other people, but also curious and kind of creative. So he's going to create structure where there isn't any structure. He's going to try to create something. And yeah, so what I'm kind of suggesting is falling in line with what he's suggesting. So the problem at hand is that you're facing a very monotone, boring task which you don't see any kind of value in. According to Dewey, the way to motivate yourself would be to naturally motivate, not in the immature, oh I'm just so spiteful so I'm going to do it, or even the that endurance is virtue so I'll do it just because way, but rather naturally motivate yourself. Like you as as just a person who is like devoid of the fact that you're being oppressed would want to do this activity. How can you do that particular thing? That's what I'm after, and that's what Nisha would suggest we should do, that we should take the situation and basically transform it so that you are like exploiting the loopholes that are there, right? In like, I shouldn't even call it loopholes, but just the things that are already present which you can use, not exactly exploit. So for example, so our example was that you're building some web application, right? Now while doing web application, like while building it, you're also practicing a bunch of other skills, and you don't necessarily want to practice it, like that's not your end goal, but you are doing it. So what you're doing is you're coding a lot, obviously that's one thing. You're also finding patterns everywhere because you have to read a lot of this tutorial stuff, like figure out how to do things, so that has a lot of patterns everywhere. You're also like learning on the fly how to write web applications and all these things. So you already have things which could be incentives. Like if you are interested in doing any of these things, if you're interested in just improving your coding speed or something like that, you would probably do it. Even if you're like interested in the most dumb thing, like let's just say improving your typing speed, you would still probably do this because it's in a way going to do it, right? So the way to transform an activity into a favorable activity is I don't know what it's called, I forgot the name for it, but basically what you're doing is some sort of calibration, right? So you want to increase the level of comfort that you have while doing this activity up to a level where it just becomes natural. So just like talking isn't natural for 2-year-olds, right? Language isn't natural, but eventually it becomes so natural that you start thinking using the words that you have learned. It's studied a lot by Vygotsky, this stuff. But basically what we want to do is take the components of the activity, and any component that you want to improve on, which you think is going to help you, use this particular activity, this complex activity that you have, as sort of a gym, basically. That you're going to do this, but at the same time you're also doing the simpler, the more primitive component which you want to improve on, so that you can do it later in life, right? Which will be useful to you. So you are incentivizing doing this complex activity by having the aim of getting better at the more simpler components that this activity is built out of. Now you aren't just going to be practicing like blindly. What you are actually going to do is trying to increase your speed. So put in effort, and put in effort not just to complete the current activity, but rather, because once again the current activity doesn't really have any kind of incentive to do, right? Currently it doesn't have any incentive for you to do it. So what you have to do is try to speed up the processes involved inside of this complex activity. So I don't know, you might time yourself in how fast you can write a particular web page, right? A particular HTML template, and then you'd be basically practicing how to write Jinja 2 templates, and that might be a skill which will be useful later on. You might also I don't know, time in how fast you can write the business logic for the views, right? So in Django you have views, So then you're basically practicing Python code, which might be beneficial for you later on. Stuff like that. You might also time yourself on how fast you can read the tutorial stuff that you have to read to understand how this Django framework works or whatever framework that you're using works. And in that case, what you're practicing is not just reading but also like acquiring information, literature review, those kind of skills, which actually might be useful for you. Like if you're going to go into that was a bad thing to say. If you're going into a field which has a lot of this, and there are so many of these fields which do have a lot of this, like programming is one of them, but then you also have like research, um, humanities stuff. Okay, I don't know why I didn't include that in research, but yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. uh, Even just like even the stock market, you have to read news and all that, right? So gathering information. So these individual components, if you speed them up, if you make it natural, or at least try to make them natural, that's the end goal, then at some point you'll be so good at it that the task won't even feel like a task. It will just be like a routine. It will feel as trivial to you uh, as walking, like I'm currently doing. I'm walking and holding a phone and speaking and thinking. So it will be like that. It will be a part of you. It will be internalized. And while it will be internalized eventually, if you just passively kept doing it, if you do it actively with that kind of effort, right? There's this thing called active practice, like deliberate practice, which speeds up your learning by like 10 20 times. I don't know what factor there is, but it speeds up your progress on any kind of skill. So if you do it like that, then you're basically learning very transferable or improving on very transferable skills or skill set, which is going to basically make you a better worker, engineer, etc., etc., right? And even if you remove all that, even if the task is stupid, like let's say it's data entry, it's still built out of something, right? Like at the very basic levels, you have cognitive processes, uh, you have like retrieval from your short-term and long-term memories. You have how fast can you perceive stuff, right? Like your sensory, what is it called, computation. Like how fast can you process that inside your brain, like just the information that you gathered from your senses. So even if it's like stupid, it's very mechanical, you're still training something. Just training that could actually be a difference. Like it could be the difference between, I don't know, cracking the world's hardest examination versus not cracking it. Okay, frankly, there was a lot more than just this. There was like too much. Not just this stupid increase of cognitive ability thing, but also like internalization of tools. And yeah, I could write a whole essay on that. Uh, but yeah, even if it's a stupid task, even if it's just data entry, you're still practicing something. You could exploit it. You could exploit your current situation. I'm going to call it exploit because that gives me a sense of power, and that's what I'm after taking the Nietzschean point of view, that power is virtue. So well, I'm powerful in this particular situation because I have the ability to change stuff, and thus I'm virtuous. I mean, virtuous isn't the point. It's just like being powerful in this situation, that in itself is that's enough incentive, just like that. So all this is stemming from a very weird idea that I had while doing all this, theorizing over multiple years. And so I had this, so like my wallpaper, many of you might have seen it, just has the letters DO. It's like the word do, basically. And the story behind that is that I believe there's always some commonality between every kind of action that you'll do, and that commonality is the practice of doing itself. So even if there's no incentive, there's always that one thing which you'll be getting better at. Just doing anything will make you better at the act of doing. And that was always like a very big motivation for why I did things, even though I had no motivation, no actual motivation to do it. Because I always had that one thing that if I just keep doing things, I'll be so good at doing things that these won't even feel that heavy to me anymore. Yeah. And today I was just like thinking about this stuff. So I have a long weekend ahead of me, and and like today's plan was to read one something related to computer networks. I have to read some RFCs about in-band telemetry. Uh, yeah, technical stuff. So it's like I have zero motivation, zero extrinsic or intrinsic motivation to do it. But if there's another incentive, if there is a belief that this will enable me to do even more things, which is what I run on. It's the belief that it will help me get better at the act of doing and does everything. I'll do it. Now I suddenly have incentive. It's almost the same thing as the Stoic virtue. Like it's a belief. There's no measurable virtue. Virtue is like it's subjective. Moral relativism and all that, right? So all you really need is just a belief that what you're doing has meaning, or it will lead to something which has meaning, and suddenly it's instrumental, and suddenly like it's kind of similar to what Dewey is telling us to do, that only gain concepts or only do tasks which matter. Even the constructionism thing, I don't know who is that, Papert, I think. He's telling the same thing, that the project kind of incentivizes learning cognitive structures, schemes, and so the schemes are instrumental in some sense, and that's why you have the motivation to do it. So rather than doing a bot, like if you think of it, if you think of the concepts that you're learning as setting in a big graph, dependency graph, then the way that Dewey wants us to do it is in a recursive DFS fashion, and the way schools and usual institutes teach us to do stuff is in a bottom-up approach. So you already know the topological order, and you'll just go through that. And Dewey says that the bigger your recursion stack is, the bigger the incentive to do a particular task or learn a particular concept. Yeah. All in all, that's basically what I wanted to say. That I have this new theory on how to be motivated to do pretty much anything, like even the most mundane task. And this I've been practicing unknowingly, like not even unknowingly. I mean, I did do it by myself. I figured all this out by myself, that this works somehow, and now I see why this works. Because if I have a belief, and because of that belief I'm motivated, so I'll actually do the thing, and then because I'll do the thing, I'll be like, oh well, I was able to do many of these things simply because of this belief, and hence this belief works. We know that's not how I'm supposed to prove that this belief works, because that's basically like cyclical. Like what worked was the motivation which arises because of belief, not the belief itself. Like it's the exact same thing as the Stoic virtue thing. Like you could literally replace the Stoic virtue with anything, with like being good in your parents' eyes, or being good in God's eyes, or whatever. If there's a God. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, the point is, just it working does not actually validate its existence. But now that I have a theory, now that I actually have a whole setup around it, I know that it exists. Because now I know it exists, it's not a belief anymore, it's straight up knowledge. So yeah, like at some point somebody asked me that I'm a smart person, so I should be able to figure out some way to solve the issues that all of us are collectively facing. And the biggest issue that all of us are collectively facing is this oppressive system which leaves us with no motivation to do anything. Like Freire's, that guy Paulo Freire, he straight up calls it oppressive. But from a stoic point of view, or even from a Nietzschean point of view, it's not. It's just any other situation. It's up to you whether or not you want to see it as oppressive. You could just see it as a gym. You could